Like most genres, goth is hard to pin down to an exact sound, but all of the music under its umbrella share numerous aspects. This includes a heavy bass sound that is upfront and prominent, piercing guitars playing melodic riffs, dispassionate vocals occasionally crying out, and deep lyrics that talk about death, disease, and other dark subject matters. Overall, a gloomy but melodic, atmospheric sound that is usually much cleaner in its production compared to similar genres like post-punk, which many goth bands also cross over into, especially bands like The Cure, which delve into many genres, including pop songs like in The Love Cats or Friday I'm in Love. We are not talking about the pop side of The Cure in this video though. No, we're descending in the opposite direction to a hellish, twisted and wicked world filled with sharp stabbing instruments and tortured, harrowing vocals. We are going to be talking about what I consider to be the best goth album. An album that represents everything goth is, with 8 songs that deliver this heavy, oppressive, dark atmosphere with no room for the light. Usually in my other videos, I just get straight into a subject without an intro. But there is a reason why I'm rambling a bit here. You see, the title of this mentioned album might set off YouTube censors. I thought it was better to be safe than sorry and wait for that weird 30-second cooling off period before I actually state the name of the album. So have I rambled for over 30 seconds yet? Okay, good. Pornography. The best goth album is Pornography. I suppose the best place to start with when discussing this album is the title. It's still quite eye-catching after 40-odd years. You can't really recommend this album in casual conversation or to a work colleague. But why? Why is it called that? Does it deal with the themes of pornography? Does it have a sexual nature to it? Is it about the dark industry of pornography? No. From what I've heard, the album has nothing to do with pornography whatsoever. Apparently, Robert Smith called it Pornography because pornography in the 80s was mysterious, dark, repulsive, and controversial. It represented this dingy underworld of life that people don't want to talk about and shudder even at the mention of the word or the subject and everything associated with it. And so, by naming the album Pornography, it elicits the same disgusted, repelling feeling people felt when discussing actual pornography. Remember as well, this was made in the 80s, where pornography was a lot harder to find and more elusive. There was no internet. And so, with all of this in mind, it paints a perfect picture for what type of album you are getting yourself into, especially with the title combined with the cover. A distorted, disturbing, red and black, hard to pin down image with 3 blurred figures reaching out, like they are trying to grab you and force you into their gloomy world. And when you're actually caught, the first thing you will hear when you are pulled into and submerged into their hellish world is the sound of a loud and heavy drum machine, a deep kick which is panned slightly left. There's also a rigid, rattling hi-hat panned right, and a flat, dull snare that reverberates through the song, all coming together to create a cold and almost robotic sound, leading to an oppressive atmosphere. Already it's very goth. After a few loops, the rest of the instruments explode onto the song. The bass is heavy, and Simon Gallup, the bass player, is hitting single notes and then sliding into the next one slowly, whilst Robert Smith's guitar is wailing and crying, with this bended note flying through the mix panned around. And the mentioned intro drum machine is also accompanied by the aggressive and brash drum hits of drummer Lol Tolhurst. Along with these swirling noises, you will also hear a creepy synth layered with the bass, and it slices into the mix from the sides, adding some high end to the song. These sounds all mixed together makes a big and expansive sound which smothers you, it closes in on you, suffocating you with its gloomy vibe. And then Robert Smith cries out, "It doesn't matter if we all die," introducing the nihilistic outlook of the album, which complements the dark instrumentation. It feels evil right off the bat. In the first 30 seconds, I imagine this album either hooks you or it doesn't. It's a litmus test. This is the song 100 Years. It's very similar to the other songs on the album. All of the songs very much have the same tone and outlook on the world, but each song has some unique aspects to it, which changes things to stop it from becoming too one note. All of these songs fit into this hellish landscape the Cure have created, flowing wonderfully one to another, but they are all very distinct, tonally consistent, musically varied. Lyrically, Robert Smith is very upfront. Again, the first lyric you will hear on the entire album is, "It doesn't matter if we all die." These are the lyrics of a defeated and demoralized man. And after looking up stories from Robert during this time, there is definitely a solid reason for why he sounds this way and why he wrote lyrics this dark. But it is a very obvious thing to say, and it may seem hypocritical of me to praise these lyrics, considering I have critiqued other lyrics from, for example, Radiohead, for being too obvious. It doesn't matter if we all die. It's something you've heard every single 15-year-old nihilist with a Reddit account say. So why do I think these lyrics work for pornography? I think taking these lyrics out of the context of the song can make them appear worse than what they are. When Robert screams out, "It doesn't matter if we all die," over this hellish sound and wailing guitars, it sounds like someone shouting out into this nightmarish red land the figures on the cover inhabit. I believe in that moment he is entirely genuine, and there is not really a fancy way to say how he feels. And in a drug-filled, alcoholic-fueled rant, it sounds at home in this cruel sound of the album. It is hard to pin down exactly what 100 Years is about. We have vague and twisted poetry mixed in with blunt and forward words, and so I do have numerous interpretations. From the last line of the entire song, "It feels like 100 years," I get the sense that the song is about withdrawal from drugs. Detoxing is so hellish for Robert, and time feels like it is moving extremely slow. Each miserable day feels like 100 years of suffering. Other lines in the song could also point to the fact that he is failing to withdraw. Over and over we die, one after the other. Like every time he relapses, it's a death. And he keeps doing it. He experiences this traumatic death over and over and just can't escape the cycle of drugs. Again, it is very tricky to pin down, and it could just be an assortment of abstract poetry glued together to suit the dark atmosphere of the song. It's what you as a listener gain from the song, and Robert gives you a lot of ingredients to sort of come to your own conclusion. One thing I need to give credit to The Cure for in general is their impeccable knack for pacing a song. They have very long songs in their discography, and on this album the average song is around 5 or 6 minutes, but they don't waste any time on any song. They know how to do a build-up. They know how long to wait until the vocals should come in, when the solo should come in, when the song should change key. It is immaculately formed, with numerous sections in each song bringing something new, like in 100 Years. The second half of the refrain in 100 Years goes lower into Robert's vocal range. This solemn sound after this massive outburst, it's like the person singing has had a depressing realization or succumbs to their emotions finally. And Robert doesn't scream out, he sounds stilted and blank compared to the other verses. Emotionless is a better word for it. Before he bounces back yet again with the sound of these previously restrained wailing guitars finally let free, creating this massive abrasive ear-piercing noise. The guitar is screeching, getting higher and higher, and it just adds to the cacophony of noise happening before coming to a sudden stop. The song is very dynamic with its tone despite being consistently moody. It sounds like someone wanting to scream out after years but just can't. And now they have an opportunity to do so, and it is still filled with hesitation. It is a phenomenal intro, and it sets you up for the album, and there aren't many breaks from this ominous sound, which is why I can understand why some would find this a little overbearing and wouldn't want to listen to it. Next after this brutal intro song is a short-term effect. The snare on this song, like many others, is a real standout. The low growl-like shake of the snare makes it stand out amongst the darkest instrumentation in the song. It is perfectly settled into the mix, with Lol just pounding on the snare in the intro, hyping up the song. The intro is abrasive, with the mentioned smashing snare accompanied by reversed sounding stretched guitars, panned sporadically, and they are always rising up, causing this feeling of impending chaos. There is also this really strange double up effect on the drums just before the breakdown, and it just kind of acts as the final bit of hype in the song before going straight into the breakdown that will set the foundation for the rest of the song. The bass here is aggressive, being plucked hard with a pick, making a quick snappy sound as it goes lower into the notes. The lead guitar is serving as backup yet again, with Robert playing wild phrases that are like sound effects more than any melodic guitar lines. They are again panned sporadically and layered with many other guitars, and his playing isn't methodical or calculated. It sounds really reckless, causing this odd, unpredictable song. Robert's vocals has this weird effect on it too, where the echo of his last line is repeated and the tone of it gets lower and lower and lower, like he is losing himself after each vocal refrain. Robert does use a lot of vocal effects on this album. It's easier to get over the very, very blunt lyrics when they are accompanied by this demonic sounding vocal effect. The guitar seems to get more and more prominent as the track goes on, and there's a type of solo, if it can be described as one, where these panning, rising guitars come to a head and are front and center, and they are covered in this type of high-pitched distortion that sounds like it is clipping the mix. It just takes over, leading to this overwhelming soundscape, sounding like metal on metal. And then finally it subdues itself and fades out, like a massive fire burning out, leaving us with this off-kilter piano. Things get a lot more structured and pop-like in the next song, The Hanging Garden, the only single from the album. There is a marching drum beat starting the track, which sounds very 80s, before the guitar is used once again to fill in the mix for atmosphere. Then in comes the main poppy bass. Simon is playing fast and snappy muted notes in between the played notes throughout, causing this aggressive but upbeat sound. The guitars are, again, panned left and right, continuing this otherworldly atmosphere apparent in each song so far. But this song here, the guitars don't sound as screeching as they did on previous songs. In fact, they don't sound very piercing at all. It's far cleaner and surgical. It would be a soothing sound to hear if it wasn't for the prominent loud bass and Robert Smith's loud wailing vocals. The guitar is weirdly mystical. It's again used to create this soundscape instead of any melodic phrasing. Robert isn't smothered in many effects here, only with a simple reverb added to his voice, and the pulling back of these vocal effects makes the song sound a lot more pop-like and clearer. But it still does lurk around this dark atmosphere though, as to not leave the tone of the album. Then comes in the chorus and refrain. Robert sings this as his vocals sweep from left to right, as the bass moves into the lower range, and the phaser of the guitar keeps sweeping in, cutting off abruptly. And this chorus also highlights an aspect of The Cure that has made them so popular. It is their ear for melodies. In this entire album, and this song specifically, under this dark cloud of distorted guitars is this fantastic earworm melody. All of the songs on Pornography are like desecrated pop songs, put through the filter of this gothic sound. Siamese Twins follows The Hanging Garden, opening with a mysterious, jangly, shimmering sound that goes around the entire stereo space. I've said that quite a few times. They really do like taking advantage over the stereo space and just putting loads of sound effects and wailing guitars all over the place, which again leads to this kind of gloomy, overbearing sound that this album just lives in. Specifically on this song though, the shimmering sound makes it feel dreamy and calming. And then just when you think this might be quite a chilled out song, the flat drums start abruptly, cutting off this calm sound and taking us into a drearier sound. I love the drums on this album. They sound so distinct and DIY. They sound untreated, like they are being played in a toilet with this wide open reverb just all over it. This is probably one of my favourite drum sounds next to the Pixies' Surfer Rosa. It sounds goth and dark, it's so distinctive. The actual drum playing by Lowell Tolhurst is great too. It's a slow track that sounds nearly offbeat with this lumbering sound that suits the song. And the song seems to be about someone who has lost it or gave up years ago and just doesn't want to try anymore. And so this playing reflects it. It doesn't sound calculated, it sounds, as I said, offbeat, like they're barely trying to even stick on the beat. This is also helped by Robert's vocals, which are lacking in much emotion in the intro. He sounds disinterested and just over it. The sound is so clear and moody, but it has this dreamy, floaty element to it from these sweet chimes present throughout the song. It's a sound I wish The Cure explored more, which they did a little bit with songs like Lullaby. I love the guitar work by Robert too. Robert should get a lot more credit for his playing, I think. I wouldn't say he's one of the greatest guitarists in the world, but he has this feel and touch that makes him very distinctive. He can be very restrained, like in the verse where the guitar serves as backup for the bass, providing atmospheric textures. And then slowly he hits the strings louder and louder, building up the main lick of the song, which is another catchy earworm. Robert's tone is also very dissonant, and it rings out with a high-pitched whine which goes extremely well with the low-end bass and drums. Each instrument sounds very relaxed and irresolute at first, but eventually they all perk up a bit at the end. It subtly changes the song to sound more aggressive, as if it goes on to say that this protagonist of the song is getting more and more riled up whilst reminiscing on what sounds like a failed relationship. Is it always like this? Lyrically again pointing out the issues with life and wondering if this life is supposed to be this way. Is this misery or struggle really all life has to offer? Or is it all just clouded by drugs and alcohol? Then comes The Cure's version of New Dawn Fades, The Figurehead. A song based around a descending bass line. It's simple, but bloody hell if it isn't catchy. The bass sound is really plucky here, which is done by playing closer to the bridge, where the strings are tauter. Along with the classic Cure chorus effect, it makes the song ring out more. For a band that was supposedly imploding, their playing is very clean and precise when they need them to be. On this song, they sound very tight and as one unit, all locked into each other, which is why the bass and drums are so great on this record. The guitar riff is catchy on this song too, comprised of these lush arpeggios, smothered in this sharp, overdriven sound, which makes it really stand out, particularly in the breakdown sections. It's a catchy breakdown following the same descending, defeated sound of the bass. Robert's feel in his guitar playing is really good here too. He starts the phrase very aggressively, before he plays the final arpeggios which don't sound as strongly plucked, leaving this defeated feeling at the end of his guitar phrase. There's also a lot of long reverb on all of the instruments here, especially Robert's vocals. It sounds like they're playing in an old abandoned castle, and it gives it this dreamy quality. Well, I guess nightmarish would probably be a better descriptive word here, although it is quite close to being dream pop-esque, or again, nightmare pop if that is a thing. It definitely has that ethereal air to it from the production and reverb, and numerous vocal effects on Robert's voice. I'll add that the production is fab for the entire record, and the figurehead shows the great production, with lots of clashing tones with the bass being in the high end as well as Robert's vocals and the cutting guitars. It is a lot to mix without clashing, but it all sounds so clear, and the instruments and their sounds are extremely distinct and panned wonderfully, creating this full sound that is neither one-sided or overbearing. I must give props to the producer, Phil Fornelli. He really knows how to get across this dark and ominous sound of The Cure. By God, I bet he had a great career working with some of the darkest and depraved bands out there. You know, he must have made some proper great records just about pure misery, despair, just hedonistic, spiteful stuff, you know. Just really rotten, miserable music. Let's actually see what else he did. Oh, he co-wrote Torn. Really? And he wrote songs for Pixie Lott. Alright, okay, fair enough then, mate. Oh, isn't music great? Oh, allowing you to just, you know, do whatever the hell you want. Who cares? Next is A Strange Day, where we hear dissonant horns or strings. I can't really identify the instrument which makes this sound, and in adding to this unnerving sound, a synth similar to the one starting A Forest starts and continues through the track. And then again, a massive snare sound rings out, starting the track along with a heavy bass line following it. What's unique about this song is the lack of guitar in the majority of the song. Instead, the role of adding atmosphere is taken over by the mentioned synth, which has this slight wobble to it. And I think there is a sampled horn or some other brass instrument in there. Maybe it's a synth pad, maybe? It's panned slightly left, and it makes the mentioned A Forest sounding synth sound even more brighter, adding this extra texture to it. There is guitar on this track, and it plays the main hook. But since you don't hear it at all in the verses or the intro, when it smashes into the track, it does make a big impact, made even bigger by its tone. Instead of having the classic Cure chorus effect on it, it has this overdriven, crunchy quality to it, with some nice low end to it, creating this classic rock sound, similar to a tone that Hendrix would use. Even the lick sounds quite Hendrixy, especially with the bends by Robert. Lyrically, this song is very abstract, and I have a difficult time with its meaning more than any other song on the album. Again, I do understand a lot of this could be lines from Robert that don't necessarily form any particular narrative, and they are more used for colour. But if I had to go into an interpretation of the song, I think it is about someone who is dead and their body is going through all of these locations after being buried at sea. The sea is mentioned a lot, along with the beach, water, and drowning waves, and then everything is gone forever. The final submerging of his body into the cold dark water of the sea, never to return, gone forever. It makes sense for an album dealing with these morbid themes to deal with death, but I love the idea of exploring the journey a body can take after death through the eyes of this cadaver, who seems to be aware of what is happening, however he cannot see. His last strange day on this earth. If you think you can't get more morbid than that, well, we come to the most chilling song sound-wise, Cold. On Cold, there is no room for happiness here. Starting with a sampled cello, it's chilled out but sounds more moody and grim than Siamese Twin. Nearly said Siamese Dream there, wrong album, maybe talk about it next time. And then this haunting drum sound plays with this icy cold crash that just rings out throughout the entire song. It's quite startling. It takes you off guard, it's so loud, it just unnerves you. I could be mistaken, but I don't hear any guitar whatsoever on this song. It's just the pure brooding sound from the bass, synths, and this weird sampled sound that sounds like glass bottles being hit. Without this warm guitar, the track feels cold, especially with those jagged drum hits. And you know, I might be mistaken here too, but I don't think there's any bass in here either. I think it's a synthetic bass. And it's all these instruments that come together to make this cold noise, especially with Robert's crying vocals. There is a really lovely melody at the heart of this darkness though that shines through this dreary music, especially the synth line acting as the main riff, which I guess might be a guitar with just loads and loads of effects on it. Whatever it is heavily affected with effects to sound artificial. And it's not like any other guitar on the record if it is a guitar. It's all low, there's no highs or mids in there, and it's not spread across the mix to make a wailing noise in both your ears. The song's subject is morbid here, of course, dealing with death again. I suspect it is about a man ending it all and telling his significant other that she will find another. Or perhaps he broke up with her. I don't know, I can get a lot from it, but it's far too abstract for me to arrive at any concrete conclusions. And that's a theme I do see in the album. You can see the entire album as a cry for help by someone just barely holding on, or perhaps they've already lost it. And nothing represents this person's mental state more than the final song, Pornography, the title track which ends the album. And it is quite the ending track. We first hear a reversed radio recording, echoing out, playing in the background. It sounds demonic, like something Ash would hear before Deadites try to attack him. It's hard to pick out anything that they are talking about in the background noise, and it just adds to this hellish atmosphere of the song. The drums are really, really flat here and sound untuned, like the drum skins are just not tight at all, creating this rumbling sound which is panned hard left. Again, it sounds really demonic. And they get louder and louder as this abstract and all over the place guitar from Robert spreads through the mix. We've heard all of these techniques before, but they are the most distressed and sporadic sounding on this song. They sound completely aimless and off the cuff. There are also these synths panned hard right, repeating the same 4-note phrase, just filling the track with this dark despair and acting as sort of an anchor for the drums and guitar. The production is really unique with lots of hard panning. However, it isn't one-sided. There isn't anything hard panned left whilst the right is just empty. It's all leveled out everywhere. So you can hear all of these sounds just melting together with headphones on just to create this dark, ominous sound. Robert is crying out and the reverb on his voice is hard panned right whilst he is hard panned left, leading to this disembodied effect like he's being sucked away into this mentioned portal to hell. This is the culmination of Pornography. It's distressing, it's grim, it's disorder, it's evil, it's just a heavy sound, and the guitar work from Robert is so abstract and metallic and aggressive. There is no style or grace to his playing. It's like the guitar is just screaming out in anguish, and it's producing a bleeding sound right at home in this nightmarish album. Robert sings and shouts about how living how he currently is will cause him to go insane and kill his partner. He is surrounded by dark imagery and is in a manic depressed state, and his life is at a crossroads. One more day like this, I will kill you. He realizes there is an animal in him and it longs for death. It wants this despair. It wants the misery that pornography is giving him. He can see himself going down this path and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like the situation he is in. After all the trouble and sickness he has went through, he sees that there is a way out. He must fight the sickness because the alternative is certain death. his own or others. It's also quite unique that he ends it with finding a cure, which could be a meta moment of him maybe finding a new sound with the cure, or using the cure as a way to get away from the drugs and alcohol that has just ruined his life up to this point, or will ruin his life. It is a happy ending of sorts, but it isn't fully there yet. The arc of the character, separate from Robert Smith, is ambiguous. You can look at the end of the song as a man going on to fix his life and find a cure for his addiction and his demons, or he could succumb to them. It's open. It's not really set in stone if this person will relapse or not. It's not false hope, but it's not false despair either. It's really up to the individual, and it's up to Robert himself to decide if he wants to go down this path or not. I prefer to see the happier side of this character, but for an album like this, it really did need to have that uncertainty at the end to be tonally consistent with the other messages. It doesn't sell a quick and easy way out. It's like the person is on step one, and that's a good thing. They're on the right track, but it's going to be difficult. I lean towards the happier side, as I usually like to think of the positive side when things are ambiguous. I don't know, maybe my edgy past teenager self is finally going away. Finally. This album is dark, it's ominous, it's depressing, but it's also extremely catchy, melodic, and thought-provoking, especially the end for me personally, with this openness of this character. It's very easy to sort of succumb to the darkness and just make very, very dreary music all of the time, which is definitely in this album, but I really do like this openness of the ending that kind of puts the final cherry on the top for me. I can listen to this album and come out of it feeling revitalized by it and seeing that there's a way out for this character. And that is Pornography by The Cure. It is my favorite album by The Cure, and if you haven't listened to it before, hopefully I've persuaded you to give it a listen, although maybe this has backfired spectacularly and you hear me describing all these piercing awful noises and go, why would I want to listen to that? Well, it's that type of album. I don't expect many people to love this album, but the people that do love it champion it as one of the best that The Cure has made. Anyways, thank you for watching. See ya.